Boy, oh boy, do I love having a hotel room booked for opening weekend of Halloween Horror Nights, even though I'm not able to buy a frequent Fear Pass or multi-night tickets yet. Welcome to the Horror Nights Gauntlet. Happy Halloween, and welcome back to the only show that's ranking 142 of Universal Orlando's Halloween Horror Nights haunted houses. This week we'll be ranking... I should have known the numbers first. This week we'll be ranking houses 125 through 121. That's not going to make the cut.
It ends up in the cut.
Maybe. Oh my god, let's talk about haunted houses. So we're starting with house 125. Let's get into it. Okay, so this is I don't know how the this made it this high, and I really think I have myself to blame in that I think I got confused as to what I was ranking. This has no business even being this high. This should be down in like the bottom like 10, maybe the bottom like 5 or 6. Like it's a pretty house. You know, and we talked, like my very first episode, we talked about how I felt like I did Afterlife dirty, and this house, I feel like I've done too good by it. Like, so this is 2003 HHN 13. This is Funhouse of Fear, and my God, it has no business being this high. So let's read the description, tell you where it was at. This was in Thunder Falls Terrace. This is the first house from director year. That's fun. And I have nothing but regret associated with this house. Nothing is what it seems in this mind-boggling maze of optical delusions and maniacal clowns that will have you running for the exit. Too bad there isn't one. Step right up, come inside, and enter the world of an eye-corrupting, mind-distorting funhouse where the clowns and carnies have their own definition of fun. So this house, it was in the Thunder Falls Terrace restaurant, which if you don't know is the restaurant next door. Now it's next door to Kong and River Adventure. And in the Islands of Adventure days of Halloween Horror Nights, this was... it was a seasonal restaurant, so they would just shut it down in the summer and start building a haunted house and put it in there. This is not the first house we've talked about in there. We talked about Fear Factor on episode 1, but I didn't have a format, so I forgot to tell you that was in there. So, all right. This house was in 3D. It was a clown house. It was a fun house theme. And this was 2003, so how old would I have been? 11. I was 11 when I did this. So no, I don't have a ton of memories of this. But what I do remember is that it sucked. It was a huge waste of time, and we really f***ed up. So in 2003, I'm like ashamed of this. It's the only year I've attended. No, it's the second year. It's one of the only years I've attended the event where I didn't do every house. And that year I only did 3 houses. And I was happy with the other 2. I did Scream House Revisited. I did All Night Die-In. But I did not do Jungle of Doom. I did not do Ship of Screams. And most importantly, I was there for the original Psychoscarapy, and I picked this instead. And I remember it was so busy. It was, I was 11. My sisters didn't want to go. So my dad brought his business partner's son with us, who was like, he was like a year or so older than me. And so it was like me, my parents, and this kid. And I remember we got there so late too. It was like 7 or 8 o'clock when we got to the park, like unreasonably late if you're gonna only go one time. And this would have been like my third Halloween Horror Nights. Could not exactly call little 11-year-old Dakota like a Halloween Horror Nights mastermind who knows how to plan an evening. And I'm 11 and I think scary clowns are cool because I'm an idiot and I don't realize that scary clowns are lame. And it comes down to like every house has a 2-3 hour wait. Like it was crazy the night we went. I want to say it was like a Saturday at the end of October. Like it was really busy. And the other kid who was with us, he didn't really care about the haunted houses. He did the 2 that we did, and he was like, can we ride some rides? And we had passes, but he didn't. So my mom took him off to like ride the Hulk or something. And so my dad was like, all right, well, what do you want to do? And I was like, I want to do haunted houses. Like, I'm here to do haunted houses. I'm 11. I'm still scared of them. But like, I knew at that point that I loved the event. Like, 2002 was very much a turning point for me. It turned me into a fan. 2003 was like where I started like looking at the message boards and everything. I knew I wanted to do a house. I just didn't realize that I picked a house. And so we did Funhouse of Fear. And I remember we waited in line for like 2 hours. And the queue for this, it's actually, you could feasibly do a house in this spot still. It took up the service road that is currently between Kong and Dudley Do-Right, where they were doing like extended queue for Kong when Kong first opened there too. So if you can picture that, I remember the queue experience infinitely better than I remember this house because it was like hours of hearing Dudley Do-Right and the audio of the "I'll save you, Nell." It goes like every 10 seconds, and it was like, I'm not joking, like 2 hours of that. And my dad is like, every time it would happen, he'd go, he just looked like he looked like just a broken man. Just, "I'll save you, Nell. I'll save you, Nell. I'll save you, Nell."
No, all I can think about is is like that audio, and then just like waiting for somebody to go to the bathroom and just cue.
Oh. By somebody, she means me. She means me because I love to just, listen, I don't want to have to while I'm on I-4. We live in Tampa. It's an hour and a half drive. If I'm gonna have to poop, I want to do it while we're still in Orlando. And inevitably, if we're at Islands of Adventure and we're leaving, I'm gonna end up pooping, and it's probably gonna be... Yes, it was very curious for Quandary. I remember, like, I feel like as a child, your attention span is both infinitely worse and yet somehow much more durable than adults. And yeah, I remember also feeling like broken, and I would look up at my dad, and I was like scared he was just gonna be like, let's get out of this line, because I just wanted to do a haunted house. Like, I just really wanted to do a haunted house, and I picked a one, and on God, it has no business being this far up on the list. I don't have that much to say about it because I don't remember it. It's one of the earliest years I attended, and I have no emotional connection to it other than just disdain. There were sideshow entertainers while you were waiting in line for haunted houses at Horror Nights, and they got the Lizard Man. He's in the Art of the Scare DVD too, but he's like, you know, hammering nails and shit into his face, and like throwing darts at his back, and like a bunch of weird shit while you're waiting in line for a haunted house. I remember all of that like yesterday. This haunted house, it's a mystery. I couldn't tell you. I don't know. I don't remember anything about this house. I tried looking at the wiki beforehand, and I'm like, yeah, cool. Okay, we got pictures of the queue. I remember that. And then there's like 4 pictures from inside the house, and I'm like, oh, there's nothing. What I do remember, I remember it being that that I feel like at this point you must know I hate, which is the like checkerboard pattern walls and someone in a costume, and they're supposed to disappear, but it like only works if the lighting is perfect. But I remember they were in color, and you know, the logo, it like looks like it's Jack's skull. Like, I don't know if I'm imagining that. It's like these flame things coming out of the side of it, and it's got these little green flames, and I thought this was a Jack house, which is why I was excited. I remember that now. And if he was in the house, I didn't see him. I remember that the Treeks and Foons from the year before were there. And that's like all I remember. Oh, the 3D glasses were cool. They were like blood splattered, and they said Halloween Horror Nights 13 on the side.
I do have a question though. Did 11-year-old Dakota like dislike it? Like
yes, yeah, I didn't like it. I remember I left the house and I was like,
I waited 3 hours for this.
Yeah, we waited 2 hours. I did not like the house. 11-year-old Dakota didn't like the house, and I wanted the thing is, with my interests, like I was into this clowns concept. The other houses that I didn't do, one was a ghost ship theme, very cool. Another was voodoo, and the other was an insane asylum. Like 2003 had a really great event lineup. Yes, 11-year-old Dakota was very aware because he had just seen 2 very good houses, and we did this one, and it was like, and at that point it's like 1:30 in the morning. My parents are like, okay, well, we gotta find your mom. We gotta go. We gotta get your friend home. And so we left, and it was like, cool, this sucks. What a piece of shit house. And that's my memory of 2003, of Halloween Horror Nights 13. Highly regarded as a great year in the history of Halloween Horror Nights, and my night ended on Funhouse of Fear, which sucked. Realistically, like, okay, should I just, I'm gonna do it right now. I'm gonna tell you right now. I'm going to move the list for everybody right now. We're gonna just do it. Afterlife's Death Vengeance was in 137 slot. Was it better than Disorientorium? Yes. Was it better than Doomsday? Yes. Was it better than Creature Feature 3D? Yes. Asylum in Wonderland? Yes. People on the Stairs? Yes. Horrors of Blumhouse? Yes. Maximum Carnage? Yes. Walking Dead 5? Yes. Havoc Derailed? Yeah. Halloween 4? Okay. So we moved it. Okay. And then I'm gonna fucking move this one too. Funhouse of Fear, fuck you. You have no business being this high. Let's see. Was Funhouse of Fear better than Cold Blind Terror, what is currently the worst house on the list? Sure. Was it better than Lunatic's Playground? Honestly, like, it should be this low. I don't know how it ended up here. Fuck it. It was better than Fear Factor. So, and I said Fear Factor was better than Lunatic's Playground. You know what? Was it better than Vampire Bloodbath? No. So you know what? Here's Funhouse of Fear basically just took Afterlife spot. Funhouse of Fear is now sitting at, let's see, spot 138, and we finally did some right by Afterlife. That's sitting at 128. Still low, but better. We fixed it. It's been resolved. So I guess the new 125 is Where Evil Hides. Congratulations. You moved up a spot. Let's keep going.
Wait.
So that was last week's house.
Okay.
Last week.
7 months.
7 months ago. I don't know. Whenever the I recorded it. Okay, so now that the edits are out of the way, that we're just doing in the episode, I guess, coming in at 124 on the Horror Nights Gauntlet's ever-changing list of haunted houses is a house that I think is very fairly placed. This is Dracula Untold Reign of Blood from 2014, from Halloween Horror Nights 24. Okay, so this was in Soundstage 24. So Dracula Untold, let's read the house description. Your demise could come from the bloodthirsty vampires or the attacking Turks as you attempt to survive the terrifying journey that turned one-time hero into Dracula. In theory, this is a house I should have loved. It's vampires. I love vampires. We haven't really talked about it on the show yet, but I love vampires. I love Dracula. I love classic Universal monsters. And I hated this fucking house. Okay, so this is based on the movie Dracula Untold, and with Luke Evans. So Gaston from Beauty and the Beast is Dracula, and this comes from this was the first attempt for Universal at kickstarting the Dark Universe, right? So this was 2014. So this was like heat of Game of Thrones, and I cannot think of the actor's name who played Tywin Lannister, but he plays like this very old vampire who I think is supposed to be Julius Caesar, but it wasn't really clear on that. And he's like the villain because the whole thing with the universal dark universe thing is that they want very badly to make the monsters the hero of this story, right? They wanted to make an Avengers movie, an Avengers Assemble of Universal Monsters, which is not in theory the worst idea, but the execution has been pretty so far. So his first attempt, it was like, oh, Dracula's a misunderstood guy. He's just he's got a family, he's got a wife and a son, he's a king. And it's not good.
So, like, is there like a villain, like a misunderstood villain thing before Wicked, or can we blame Wicked for this?
Grendel. That book that you had to read in high school, maybe?
Yeah, maybe.
I feel like Grendel is the OG misunderstood villain movie or book. It doesn't actually have a movie.
Is Grendel that popular?
In English class. Grendel, and then what was the name of the Big Bad Wolf book by the Stinky Cheese Man author?
Oh my god. Stinky Cheese Man, what the fuck? Wait.
Took you back.
Yeah, you did.
The True Story of the Three Little Pigs was the name of the book.
I need to go read that right now.
That's the OG, baby. Cruella? Hell no. It was the Big Bad Wolf, baby. Misunderstood, mama. He just had a cold. I could get into my thoughts on the Dark Universe, but I'm not going to do that here. But I think this was a flop movie and a flop house, and I did see the movie. With very few exceptions, I like to consume the media that is being presented at Halloween Horror Nights. And so, like, in concept, this is supposed to be an IP. It's a book report house. It's a movie. It's a haunted house adaptation of the movie. But the problem was that the movie was not out yet. I feel like it came out during the event. So it came out October 10th. It came out a few weeks into the event. And I remember, like, it's never a good... They've done this before. They did it with The Wolfman in 2009, where you're basically walking through a trailer of the movie that isn't out yet. And so they don't want to, like, spoil the movie. But then also there's, like, weird shit that has absolutely nothing to do with the house. I remember very little. I'm looking at pictures because I'm trying to refresh my memory. I remember thinking the facade was really cool. Do you remember this at all?
I don't think I do.
You
Which is crazy because I don't even think we legally could drink, so it's not like we were drunk.
24? No, we were like 22.
Were we?
We were drunk a lot of that year.
Maybe
I don't have a ton of memories of that year. I was working. I was legitimately working for another haunted house at the time, for a regional haunt, and I had been designing for. So I really, like, Halloween Horror Nights was not really on my radar that year, except for AVP. She's high. And Halloween. There were good houses in 2014. I don't have a deep connection with that year. But Dracula, I remember the facade. I remember thinking that was cool because I remember you kind of went up a little bit. I remember it was like this ruins of a castle. I remember thinking like, oh, maybe we're in for something cool. At the time I was very like, this is not an IP I care about, but maybe we're in for something cool. And then I remember it quickly like looking like kind of not great, but it was a mixed bag. I remember like a moving statue scare. I remember like some projected bat scares. And then we got to like my favorite thing in this house was this like witch house. And it was like, I guess according to the wiki, this is Baba Yaga, like from folklore. But I don't remember her in the movie, and I remember specifically because, like, in the haunted house, it looked like the gingerbread house from like Hansel and Gretel. Like, it smelled like gingerbread, and there was all this like sage and like shit hanging from the ceiling, and this scary witch would come out and scare you. And I remember thinking like that was my favorite room in the whole house, and it was beautiful. It's just that I went and saw the movie a few weeks later, and I was like, where was that witch? Where's the witch with the good smell house? Where was the good smell house? It was cut from the film. I wonder if there's a deleted scene of her. Anyway, so there was one scene in this haunted house I really liked, and it wasn't in the movie. And overall, just kind of ugly red lighting, castle walls, and not great. Have I gone on my tangent about red and orange lighting? in haunted houses. So this house suffered from not as bad, but a similar problem that I have with other haunted houses. I'll cite like The Fallen is a good example from 2017 of haunted houses that use a very heavy red and orange lighting. Red and orange are really overpowering colors in like the light spectrum, and they don't wash things out. They like turn everything black. And I tend to really hate haunted houses that overuse red and orange. And this, of course, did have blue, and it had a proper lighting scheme. But like, I do remember it being a lot of like ugly castle walls and red lighting, and that's a turnoff for me. It's just visually very just like, it's ugly. I don't know. I thought this was kind of just a whatever house, kind of ugly. You know, it reminded me of like 2005, like Blood Ruins, like those old Horror Nights houses back in the day, Halloween Horror Nights houses. There were elements of that I liked about it. Like I remember there being like, you know, the flayed, like skinned guy, like stuff like that. I like that kind of element of it, and it had that. It just didn't have a lot going for it. There wasn't like an emotional connection, and the story is so specific and so like, you had to watch the movie to get anything out of it. And if you just watched my episode, it was 2 hours long, so I'm sorry. But if you just watched the very delayed Diet HHN review, I really got into the three houses because I think they told spectacular stories that were incredibly like easy to grasp, very easy to follow, accessible. And for a movie like this, which has a lot of like, I don't remember this movie. There was like betrayals and shit, and like, you know, oh, I'm an evil vampire, and now the tables have been turned, and I'm Turkish, and the tables have been turned, and I'm not Turkish. I'm whatever Dracula is, and now the tables. Like, you can't really translate that into a haunted house easily. So you didn't have a plot. You didn't really have characters to get attached to. I don't know I've never heard anyone say they liked this house. I've never heard anyone say anything positive about it. If anything, it sits in exactly, I think it's a perfect transition into the section of the houses that we're getting into, which is kind of that mostly shitty, but maybe mostly forgettable. Like, nothing so sinful that lands you at the bottom of the list, but just like meandering and bland, or, you know, they're not good, they're not great, they're just kind of there, they just fill space. And I don't know that that's a huge section to list. The truly terrible section to list, I think we've exited it. We're past that point. But or mostly, there's maybe some of the other houses tonight are pretty bad, but I don't think they need to be thrown to the bottom like we just did with Funhouse of Fear. Dracula Untold, I'm comfortable with where it's sitting. It was a bad house. It had some okay moments. It had some redeeming qualities, but not many. And it was just forgettable. No one cares about this house. No one's gonna remember this house. It has no legacy. I don't see anyone other than in a situation like this where we're talking about it because we have to. No one's gonna just, hey, you remember Dracula Untold? No. Honestly, no, I don't. I liked, I didn't like anything about it. I'm not gonna pull and I liked, I don't have anything to pull for you people. I hated this house. Thought it was ugly. Coming in at 123, is a haunted house from 2009. I'm going to be honest, one of my absolute favorite years of Halloween Horror Nights in the 20 years I've been going. Even the worst houses, including this one, I have a soft spot for. I just objectively know it was bad, and so it's down here, but I still kind of love it. So this was located in Sprung Tent 2. I haven't told you the name of the house. It's The Spawning. So this house number 123 is The Spawning. It's in Sprung Tent 2. And here's the description. Oh, it's long. Oh, whatever. Here, let's do it. Something different, in quotations, has moved in among the sewers of Wyandotte County, Ohio. The locals claim that these creatures, the Scalders, are 2 feet tall with the body of a snake. As a volunteer member of the local water district, it's your civic duty to venture into these pipes and restore the flow. But beware, the locals are wrong about the Skulders, and the only thing that will be flowing is your blood as it leaves your lifeless body.
Wyandotte?
Wyandotte. It's a, Wyandotte is the county where Cary, Ohio is.
I was gonna say, like, where is it really?
It's a real county. I'm not gonna deep dive into Cary, Ohio on this show. I feel like if you watch this show, you probably know already. But it's there's also the Wyandotte Estate, which was like the legendary truth thing, right? Yeah. So this house is deeply ingrained in the history of Cary, Ohio. So the spawning. It was about monsters in the sewer, and it was bad. Okay, so I guess we'll like get into it. So the spawning was in Tent 2. This was 2009, so this was a big IP year, actually. This was Saw, The Wolfman, Chucky. This was the Usher's year. This house was presented by Fangoria magazine, who did both of the original houses that year. There were only 2 original houses that weren't connected to any kind of IP whatsoever. And it was but I loved it. I don't know. It was stupid, but I loved it. Okay, this was Depths of Fear. This was stupid little subterranean monsters, like these gremlin lizard people. The art on the website is much cuter than the actual character art, which we'll just over there for you. I mean, I get that it's like, okay, so the Skulders are prehistoric, Gillman-esque, Creature from the Black Lagoon-esque, reptilian, amphibious monsters who will eat people. And they're really goofy looking in the haunted house. The issue is that they are a mask, it's kind of silly looking mask, but it's serviceable in the dark, I guess. A rubber hands, and then just like a very loosey-goosey, not even lycra, just like a loose, it looks like a sack for the rest of their body. And I think that's where the problem, like the core of the problem with this house, is that in concept you have a cute idea. We're going into the sewer system, we could just sewer environments, and you could see all these different things. You don't get any of that. I mean, yes, you get the sewer, but the issue then being that, like, the monsters that are supposed to be the scary antagonists of the house are just, they look terrible. And it's evolved, I would say, from 2005's Terror Mines. So, like, the whatever they're called in that house, I feel like that design is like, this is like the next step. I don't know that these are correlated in any kind of way, just that like aesthetically I feel like they're from the same core. I would even say this could be considered, both of those houses could be considered a precursor to like Depths of Fear, in that like very goofy looking monster industrial environment, costumes that look unfinished. I remember I went through this house with my mom, and she was so, like, my parents go every year. My parents love Horror Nights. They've been going as long as I have. They don't love it as much as I do, obviously. Big difference, but they do love Horror Nights, and it's like we always have to have a family night every year where my parents go. And my mom talks about this to this day. She has this like fear of gray aliens. Deeply ingrained, like very scared of the concept of like an alien, and these are not aliens, but for whatever reason her brain decided they were aliens. And this woman was having an out-of-body experience in this haunted house, like a full convulsion, like almost hysterical crying, like terrified. And like you look at what these things look like, it's so funny because they're not scary, they're really goofy looking. According to the internet, they did not have a massive budget allocated for the original houses, and the other original house that year, Leave It to Cleaver, is like an all-time fan favorite, and I agree. I love that house. But this house, to save some money, they reused the blueprints from the previous year's house, which was Dead Exposure, which is also like an all-time like legendary haunted house. Like everyone talks about Dead Exposure, and it was great. And they just kind of repurposed the designs and made everything, offices and things, look like sewage, concrete. And for the most part, this resulted in just a very stale, sparse environment. I don't remember much. I mean, I remember there was a scene in Dead Exposure where there was it was like a circular room with a bunch of like sewage pipes like surrounding you, and like of course there was a scare in one of them. And I remember that in both houses. I do remember like Dead Exposure, of course, is in black and white and like just the simple highlights painted on in Dayglow. Of course, this was full color, and I remember that same scene, and that was honestly when I noticed. I was like, this is very familiar, because the year before I'd gone a lot. This is they reused some sets, and turns out they did. And so seeing that, like, clearly this was a house on a dime. It had its problems. I think getting to see my mom utterly lose her shit. This should probably be a bottom of the barrel house, if I'm being honest. But it's my list, and the fact of the matter is I have good memories associated with it. This was my senior year of high school. That whole year, there really was no house I hated, even though this was the worst house of the year for me. Like, everything about it, like, really just, I have a lot of really good memories associated with it. It was a really good time, and even though it was goofy and we laughed at it and we made fun of it, overall, I really enjoyed the spawning. Okay, so coming in at number 122, it's funny. And they ended up this close to each other consciously, sort of. But we were just talking about the spawning, and it was very hard to talk about the spawning and not mention Depths of Fear and Terror Mines. And that is because this is 2005's Terror Mines. This was held, the one and only, this house was hosted in Poseidon's Fury, which was cool, and it was. Let's read the description. A darkened mine shaft leading to the underworld has created a first-of-its-kind experience where you control, or do you, the only source of light. Long rumored to be the underground source of a vast power that fuels Terra Cruentis above, the abysmal deep can only be reached through the twisting tunnels of the Terror Mines. Inadvertently unearthed in a terrible mining tragedy, savage subterranean creatures now live in constant battle with the Dragonforge miners and mankind interlopers. So, Terror Mines is a 2005 house. So this is a Terra Cruentis house. This was not the worst one. Oh, it's Cold Blight Terror, my least favorite house, was also that year. I was thinking, like, is this the first time 2005 is being mentioned? No, but this is the first time 2005 is going to be mentioned in a not entirely negative light, which is good because Terra Cruentis is relevant this year. Surprise. So Terror Mines was a haunted house. Terror Mines was a hot mess, I'm gonna be honest. And objectively, it might be worse than the spawning. It's really hard to pick between the two. It is once again a subterranean creature. These guys were kind of ubiquitously known among the scare acting cast, and I knew a guy in this cast as the Sperms. According to someone I know from that cast, they called each other Sperms. And they were in Lycra, but they also had a bag over them. The decisions, man. The masks were goofy and silly, and they kind of looked like, these are less gremlins, these are less chud, like where the spawning was more in that kind of vein of things, more sewer monsters. These are more like Morlocks from the Time Machine. I think functionally and like from a tech perspective,
is he just wearing a t-shirt?
It's like, so it's a Lycra sleeves, and there's like it's like a sack, and then they have some kind of pant on. Yeah, but the skin tone of the Lycra doesn't match the mask whatsoever. It's a mess. You know, this house had these guys. They look like aliens, honestly. They look more like aliens than the ones my mom was afraid of. It was like orcs, and so Terra Cruentus was. Do I have to explain the whole thing? Should I break into that? It's complicated. Do you know anything about Terra Cruentus?
Everything you're saying doesn't make sense to me.
Nothing she's saying. Nothing we know. We don't know anything.
I'm a baby who's never been to Horror Nights, but no,
that's not true. She's been going to Horror Nights for like 9 years. I'm gonna just out her. She's been going for a long time. But this is before her time. So Terra Cruentus was the name of the universe in which Halloween Horror Nights 15 was set. Okay. Halloween Horror Nights 15 was later retitled Tales of Terror. Okay. That's the year that the storyteller was the icon. Storyteller was created by marketing to replace the Terror Queen, who was created by creative to be the icon, because her story and the whole universe were considered too complicated for mainstream, which I'm gonna be the devil's advocate is totally fair. Storyteller does suck, but Terror Queen, while an incredible character, very confusing lore if you weren't deep in the shit or haven't had someone like spell it out for you. And essentially all of Islands of Adventure, because it was still the Islands of Adventure Horror Nights days, became this country called Terra Cruentus. And it was like another realm, another world. This is where the body collectors come from, where some other things from Horror Nights come from. Everything was like meticulously connected. Like it literally was like a Lord of the Rings scale world building. Like every single island was a country in this continent, and like they all serve different purposes, and like how they built this sacrificial knife to give to the queen to stab people, and like there's this like trees that like everything was. It's a really complicated lore, and I'm not going to get into it, and I'm like 3 drinks in, and that's not what this show is. If you want that, I promise you there's better shows out there that are better equipped to explain this very intricate plot to you. But in these mines where this story is set, they're mining for some kind of ore, which then gets hammered down into like steel. And does any of this matter? I don't know. The haunted house was set in Poseidon's Fury. Not a goddamn thing about this matters, because the haunted house was very minimal. It was the same orc scare actor masks they'd been using since the event came to Islands of Adventure in 2002, which just looked like Lord of the Rings orcs with the sperms. I don't know what they're called. Do they have names? They're the subterranean creatures. Do they have names? I don't think they have names. I hope YouTube doesn't hate the word sperm, because we've said it a lot. Oh my god. Hey folks, I'm gonna come in. The sperms are called gnome rats.
I like that name better.
Gnome rats. To sperm?
Yeah.
I would hope.
Also, mole people. Gnome rat sounds better.
Mole people.
Rats I can see in that mask.
Gnome rat. Yeah, I see that now. Sorry. I glanced over and I was like, wow, I don't know how to read. Gnome rats. I'm gonna call them sperm, okay? So the special thing about this house, I haven't even gotten into this, is this was the first helmet house, the hard hat helmet lamp hat house. They sent you into Poseidon's Fury. The lights were mostly out. There was minimal set dressing to sort of change the sets to look like you were in a subterranean cave temple. And occasionally there'd be like bursts of fire, and your hat, which was given to like every like 6th guest, would like, it was RFID enabled, so you'd change rooms and suddenly it was a strobe light, or light would turn red, or like the light would change colors. But there weren't enough to give to every vet guest. Clearly it's higher than People Under the Stairs because it actually had sets, but that benefits from how beautiful the sets already are in Poseidon's Fury, the attraction. So it didn't have to try that hard. It's so dumb too. It's literally the Poseidon's Fury walls, and then there's like boxes and crates and barrels and tarantulas, or like oh, we put some hanging shit in your face, and there's some, like, we put a couple archways that look like mine shaft arches. It was bad. It was a bad house. There's no, like, ifs, ands, or buts about that. Is that the mummy? Is that a pygmy from The Mummy Returns? I think it is. It's a pygmy mummy. I remember things that there are also a lot of photos of were that the very first room, they would just open a door from backstage and you would be in the water vortex. And that was like where the house like started. And I remember the friend I had who was in that house telling me how like every so often the vortex turns off and all the water just kind of crashed down on them. So they were always like soaking wet in that scene. And I kind of love the visual of like just these miserable wet characters who call each other sperm. And they've got to just like, my costume's stupid, boo. Anyway, this haunted house, it was medieval. It was kind of, there were mine shaft elements. And there were these really goofy characters. So Terror Mines, was not a great house, and I honestly, it is in a similar boat as The Spawning in that it is ugly and minimalist and ugly monsters, subterranean monsters. Weirdly, they are like cut from the same cloth almost. But Terror Mines gets that just a little of an edge over it because of the mine helmet, and that it was in a sense more effective here than it was in People Under the Stairs, because at least the sets had something to look at, where People Under the Stairs was just like black tarps, black walls. So yeah, The Spawning and Terror Mines, it was the same house. The Spawning and Terror Mines, Depths of Fear, but worse. House 121 is a house from my least favorite year of Halloween Horror Nights.
House from my first year of Horror Nights.
Sorry. Maybe it's not my least favorite year of Horror Nights because 2020 happened. No, I still think this is actually a worse year than Diet HHN. So this is from 2012. So this is Alice Cooper. So Alice Cooper was in Sprung Tent 1. Like I said, it was in Halloween Horror Nights 22, so it's 2012. And we will read the description, then we'll really get into it. So journey into the legendary rocker Alice Cooper's twisted mind and witness the natural melding of horror and Cooper's 4 decades-long career. Here you follow Stephen, the iconic character from many of Cooper's works, as you come face to face with a myriad of tormentors who threaten an already decaying sense of sanity. Face your demons in legendary rockers Alice Cooper's twisted mind and bear witness as horror and music become one. I haven't really talked much about Hollywood's event yet, but this is actually a clone. So Alice Cooper Welcome to My Nightmare was a haunted house in Hollywood the year before, and Alice Cooper was part of the team designing it. It was done to promote his new album at the time, Welcome to My Nightmare. It was a sequel to his 70s album, Welcome to My Nightmare. I feel like stuff like this with the goofy and the weird and the rock stars is a very Hollywood kind of event, or haunted house. That very much fits the vibe for Halloween Horror Nights Hollywood. But it was very successful in Hollywood, and they wanted to do it again. So they did in 2012 they did a 3D version of it, which was I think a ground up redesign. I believe it was a true sequel in Hollywood in 3D, which was Alice Cooper Goes to Hell 3D. And in Florida, we got our version of Alice Cooper Welcome to Our Nightmare. And if you know anything about the two coasts, you know that even if they share an IP, or if they are getting something from the opposite coast's event the following year, they're still going to go ahead and do their own thing. They don't want it to be similar. And you could go to, if you've been to both coasts in a single year, you will see a drastically different thing, especially if you do a house that was on both sides. Most recently for us was Poltergeist or Stranger Things. Yeah, very different despite being the same source material. And I obviously did not experience the Hollywood version of this house, but I've watched it. And the vibe is very different. And it's funny because I feel like that year my friend and I had been like pretty like this was higher on our hype list. We thought this was kind of exciting. Like, oh, how like we'd watched the video in Hollywood the year before, and we were like, this looks really cool. Like, I'm excited to see it in Florida. And I remember being kind of let down, but I was still like, we're still kind of hyping it up because we had like, I do this with everything with Horror Nights. Like, if it's going to be at the event, I'm going to consume the media. So I was listening to Alice Cooper all summer, and I was like, you know, listening to Welcome to My Nightmare. I was listening to Welcome to My Nightmare, which is a terrible album. I didn't really like it. I remember there being like it starting in an insane asylum, and I remember there being padded walls and someone coming through the padded wall. I remember that being really cool. I don't remember there being strippers in this haunted house, but it doesn't surprise me that there are girls on a pole. Oh, I like this no-nose all Cupid's bow bitch. Okay. Yeah, it's weird because it's like, honestly, this album is really like, it deals with some really dark shit. So the thing about Alice Cooper, Welcome to My Nightmare, the album, is that it deals with some messy topics. And those are depicted in the haunted house. And so like if that is something that could have been a trigger for you, I could see where that house could have been very effective or very affecting. I don't know how to like carefully talk about that element of the house, but it was an element of the house. And overall, I feel like it, you know, you didn't see anything depicted, but you had a scary stepdad in a white tank top and a mom in the scene and a kid like huddled up by the table. And like, I think that's said enough. The house itself dealt with a lot of like just darker themes, and I understand that the album is darker. I understand it's horror, and I understand that some of these stories are like personal to Alice Cooper, the artist, the individual, the person. So I don't fault them for any of that, but it was uncomfortable. It's a very mid-tier house for me. It's very indicative of where it is on the list. It's not super memorable. I'm sure if you have a deep connection with this music or with this artist, this could really mean something special to you, and this house might be one of your all-time favorites. I think that it had some really unique visual elements. Overall, I don't really fuck with 70s rock, so I didn't really connect with the album, and I think I connected with the house visually more than I did, you know, sonically, more than I did as like a fan or something. I think I'm a fan of the idea of Alice Cooper, but his music actually like doesn't really do anything for me. This house to me is very much like what I picture when I picture like gatekeeper dudes at Halloween Horror Nights, is like, only rock is horror music. And it's like, well, that's fundamentally not true, because I felt like Billie Eilish was like the right step in like proving that the girls, gays, and theys can create horror. And this is, I don't care about, I don't know, I just feel like rock stars have kind of had their say in Halloween Horror Nights. Like, California has done Slash, they've done Black Sabbath, they've done, like, obviously Alice Cooper and Rob Zombie. Like, I feel like it's kind of played out, it's kind of been done. Like, let's see something new. I don't want any of this. I'm ready to see, like, when Billie Eilish was out, I was like, okay, well, who's another pop star who is signed to Universal Music Group, who, you know, kind of dabbles in the horror aesthetics? And I know you probably think I'm going to say Lady Gaga, but I was actually thinking The Weeknd. Like, can you imagine After Hours as a haunted house? Or like, I mean, just like all of the, like, you could have like a whole room of the guys in the red jackets with the bandages. Like, you could have a room where he's, I know, literally, you could have a whole room of like just getting chased around when he has the like hatchet, or when he's got the knife, or like you could do the plastic surgery girls who are like making out with his head. Like, that's, I'm not done with music at Halloween Horror Nights. I'm kind of done with rock music at Halloween Horror Nights. I think it's had its say, and I'm ready to see something different. Honestly, although my initial reaction to Billie Eilish was like, really? Like, I quickly turned around on that. And yeah. Moral of the story, everything is Alice Cooper's fault. Alice Cooper, more like Alice Pooper. Anderson Cooper, Welcome to My Nightmare. It's set entirely in 2004 during Hurricane Katrina. I was once working on a production with a news company that I won't name. And the audio guy told me that he had previously worked with Anderson Cooper, and they were in like the Himalayas or something, like for 60 minutes. I don't know. I probably have the location wrong. I'm going to be honest with you. But he was telling me that Anderson Cooper is the biggest alive. 60 minutes, Alice Cooper. So I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in again. This week, let's see, what did we cover? We covered houses 125 through 124, but things have changed, and 125 got knocked down all the way to 138. So really, let's just start. So coming in at number 138 is 2003's Funhouse of Fear. Everything else scooted down a notch. And then we also moved the then coming in at 127 is Now Afterlife's Death's Vengeance. Then we're going to scoot all the way down to the bottom, back to 124, which was actually part of the episode, 2014's Dracula Untold Reign of Blood. 123 was 2009's The Spawning. 122 was 2005's Terror Mines. And at 121, ending this week out, is 2012's Alice Cooper, Welcome to My Nightmare. So we'll just get into a little bit of house cleaning, and we'll send you on your way, guys. So I have pretty exciting news for the channel. We finally have t-shirts! And this is a really humongo giant one that my fiance ordered to sleep in. But I'm pretty excited about it. I tried to model it after all of my favorite Halloween Horror Nights haunted house shirts, which I guess is not really an exclusive thing to Horror Nights. It's really just the classic theme park I survived these attractions shirt. But rather than just being a collection of haunted houses, these are actually just a bunch of memes from the past year without Halloween Horror Nights. So if you want to help support the channel and represent your favorite Halloween Horror Nights YouTube series, or at least the best looking one, this really is kind of just commemorating all of the things that the fandom sort of made happen and kind of helped all of the, not just Halloween Horror Nights, but all of the haunts sort of exist in that like meme space. And I don't know, I thought it was something just like kind of special to do for the event and for the year. And yeah, so that is available now. Link in the description box. So the next on the docket, I keep talking about having an upcoming project with Tien Guignol from Frightful Failures podcast. Eventually, hopefully this month, we'll be doing a competitive design contest, or not contest, but contest isn't even fair. We have each taken 5 of the Halloween Horror Nights icons, and we have designed from the ground up, from concept title, scene by scene walkthroughs of 5, really 10 Halloween Horror Nights icon haunted houses that we've designed ourselves. So we're going to kind of do a special. It's probably going to be a 2-parter. We haven't shot it yet. We've been doing all the like legwork to get it ready. So that'll be coming up really soon. I'm really excited about that one. I think it's going to be very different from the usual format. It's going to be like entirely creative, entirely like our perspectives on like really what we want from the event. But I think that'll be really exciting. Other things I want to see for the channel, I mentioned it on the last episode. The Horror Nights Gauntlet Scare Zone list is coming very soon. Like I said, it's not going to be every single episode, but you know, there are only so many haunted houses, and I do want to have a way for the show to last. So there's more I want to talk about. There's a lot more projects I want to do. Obviously, not just with the Horror Nights content on the channel, but with just with the art projects I kind of do in general. So really excited to kind of bring some of these to the forefront. Kind of been rearranging my my availability, my time to make this channel work, but definitely a lot of stuff planned for the real Horror Nights season once it really gets going. You know, it helps the channel a lot if you like, comment, subscribe, buy my shirt. You can follow me on Instagram, Twitter. It's all going to be Cathode Coaster. Cathode Coaster on Twitter is definitely more my personal Twitter, but I talk about Horror Nights probably every day. Cathode Coaster and Horror Nights Gauntlet on Instagram. If you can find my personal Instagram, you can follow that too. But a lot of exciting stuff is on the way, guys. So thank you so much, guys, for tuning into the Horror Nights Gauntlet only on Cathode Coaster.